Welcome to this explainer. Okay, if you're learning English as a second language, I know exactly what you're thinking. How on earth can such tiny three-letter words cause such massive headaches? Trust me, you are not alone in this. Words like a, an, and the are just notoriously frustrating. But hey, don't worry. Today, I'm going to give you a super friendly, totally foolproof guide to mastering English articles. So let's jump right into this.
I mean, think about it. Why do we say an hour, but a university? They both start with letters that seem to just completely break the rules we were all taught in beginner classes, right? It's a huge point of confusion, and it perfectly captures the everyday struggle. But stick with me, because by the end of our time together, we're going to solve this mystery. You'll understand exactly why this happens, so you literally never have to second guess yourself again.
To get there, we've got a really clear roadmap for today. We're going to meet the indefinite articles, then get specific with the, uncover this thing called the invisible zero article, tackle some tricky places and institutions, and wrap it all up with a quick reference summary. All right, let's kick things off with our indefinite articles, a and an. These two little words are basically your foundational tools. You'll use them whenever you're mentioning a singular, countable noun for the very first time, or when you're just talking about any one member of a group. You know, you're bringing something totally new into the conversation. Now, the absolute secret to choosing between them is the sound rule. It's completely about the sound of the following word, not how it's spelled. So, we use a before a consonant sound. Sure, a cat. But listen really closely to this. A university. See? It starts with a vowel letter, but your mouth makes a y consonant sound. On the flip side, we use an before a vowel sound. An apple. And an hour. That H is completely silent, so you're actually making an ow vowel sound right out of the gate. So remember, it's the sound that matters, not the ink on the page.
Moving right along, let's get specific with the, which is our definite article.
We switch over to the when things get specific. It's for when there's a shared context between you and whoever you're talking to. You drop the when both of you know exactly which specific item is being discussed. Let's look at this tiny little story. I saw a man. The man was reading. See what happened there? In the first sentence, we introduce him for the very first time. A man. Could be literally anybody. But in the second sentence, boom, he suddenly becomes the man. Why? Because he's not just any man anymore. He's the specific character we just introduced. The article naturally evolves as the character becomes known to us. But crucially, the isn't just for second mentions. We also use it for completely unique things like the sun or the moon. And, this is a big one, for superlatives. If you're describing something as the absolute most extreme version of itself, you've got to use the. You don't ever say you had a best time. You always have the best time. Makes sense, right? Well, that brings us nicely to our next concept, the invisible zero article, or basically using no article at all. I want you to imagine the zero article as this magical, invisible word where we intentionally leave the space before a noun completely blank. You'll often see it written as that little circle with a slash through it. It just means absolutely no article before a noun. And the really key takeaway here is that skipping the article in these specific cases isn't a mistake. You didn't just forget a word. It's a deliberate, grammatically correct choice. We usually reserve it for making broad, general statements, naming proper nouns, or talking about big abstract ideas, like life or love. Let's ground this a bit in your everyday vocabulary. You're going to use this deliberate blank space for things like meals, sports, days of the week, academic subjects, and transport phrases. Just think about how native speakers actually converse. You say, I'm going to have dinner. It sounds incredibly clunky to say, I'm eating a dinner or the dinner, right? Unless, of course, you're talking about a very specific, pre-planned fancy gala. You play chess, you don't play a chess. You travel by bus, not by the bus. Now, here's a super common error that a lot of really eager learners make. When we talk about speaking a language, it strictly requires the zero article. It's not, she speaks the French. No way. It's simply, she speaks French. Let that invisible blank space do all the heavy lifting for you. All right, moving into some really interesting territory here. Tricky places and institutions, and how articles can literally change their entire meaning. So using the zero article actually refers to the core purpose or role of an institution. For example, if you say she is in hospital with no article at all, you mean she's actively participating in the purpose of that institution, meaning she's a patient receiving medical care.
But if you add the and say, I drove past the hospital, you're just referring to the physical architecture, the actual building sitting on the street.
And the exact same rule applies to educational facilities. If a child goes to learn, they go to school. Zero article, because they're fulfilling the purpose of being a student. But if their parents visit the building for a parent-teacher meeting, the parents go to the school. Grasping this subtle difference between the purpose of a place versus the mere physical building is an absolute game changer. It's going to make your English sound so incredibly natural. Which brings us to our final stop, your quick reference cheat sheet. Huge congratulations, by the way. You've just navigated some of the absolute trickiest parts of English articles. Okay, get your phone ready to take a screenshot because you're going to want this permanent reference guide in your pocket. As you can see, all those messy, frustrating rules actually fit pretty neatly into 3 highly predictable boxes. A and N are for your singular countable nouns on the very first mention. The steps in for no nouns, unique things, and second mentions. And your invisible best friend, the zero article, is exactly what you use for plurals in general, languages, meals, and sports. Once you map it out like this, it's actually super logical. So let's put this into practice right now. I've got a mini pop quiz for you right from the practice exercises in our source material. How would you fill in these blanks? Do you play blank guitar or blank chess? Think back to the rules we literally just covered. Musical instruments always take the, while sports and games take the zero article. So it's, do you play the guitar or chess? How'd you do? If you start noticing these tiny words in your daily conversations, I promise you they aren't going to give you massive headaches ever again. Keep practicing, stay curious, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.